This is Tucker, and today we're going to go ahead and get started on the floor of the Roadmaster there on the front passenger side where it had a little bit of rot. I think it's from the condensation from the air conditioning kind of leaking down along there. Had a few people in the comment section saying, yeah, that they had some Roadmasters and Caprices, and I guess it's kind of a common problem for them where they allow that drain hose on them. It kind of drips down in there and kind of rots the floor out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and try to get that patched up and welded in. And then after that, we're going to try to move towards the back of the car and get the gas tank filler spout relocated to where it's going to start heading towards the tail fin area of the 57. That way, once we get the body on there, we don't have to do a lot of work under the car. It's easier to get to right now. So we'll go ahead and get started on all that and see where we end up. Well, we got most of that rust cut up out of here, and after we did that, I kind of noticed on this factory brace here that it's got a little bit of rot in here that we're going to have to address, and a little bit right in here. It's still a real solid brace. When I initially cut that tunnel out of here, I'd welded up a piece of angle iron that went up and tied into that brace that I had on the car because I was afraid that this was going to drop a lot by not having a tunnel in there. But by having a brace here and a support back up under here, it makes this floor really, pretty rigid. So I think what we might end up doing, one of the viewers on the earlier video when I did the tunnel was saying something about like making it a removable tunnel. And actually it's kind of a pretty good idea. So we might go ahead and set the tunnel on here and see how far we are going to be, because we were planning on kind of angling this in to tie into that tunnel since we set it back anyways. So if I can get that tunnel set up here, and if I do decide to go with a removable one, maybe we'll just go ahead and cut up in here a little higher and do this all at once, kind of kill two birds with one stone. So we'll get that tunnel set up here and see what we've got. Well, I went and got that tunnel and set it back in place here, kind of pretty much exactly where it needs to be. And I think what we're going to go ahead and do, I'll go ahead and get a small bit, drill a few holes along the way here, and take some sheet metal screws to screw it down into place here so we kind of have a good idea exactly where we kind of need to meet up with it. Whether we make it removable or, plan on welding it in permanent, that's going to give us an idea exactly where we kind of need to tie into it at. So we'll go ahead and get started on that and see where we end up. All right, well, we pretty well got our little floor patch fabbed up here. I went ahead and drilled a couple holes where we can plug weld it on there. I think I might go ahead and drill one more hole about right in here to plug weld it here. Probably not necessary, but we'll do it anyways. And when I was reading comments earlier on one of the earlier videos, somebody had mentioned something about some weld through primer. And I'd heard of that stuff years ago and then kind of forgot about it. But in theory, you're supposed to be able to, apply it, clean your metal up, put it in here, spray a little bit of that on, and spray it on the back side of your material. And then when it dries, you can weld it on there, and then everything will have kind of a coating. So I went by the O'Reilly's. They had a 3M version of it. Right here, it's called Weld Through 2. So I'm going to go ahead and try that out just to see. Heck, like I said, I should have been using it all along, but like I said, you kind of get started on a project. If you haven't used stuff before, you don't think of using it at the time. But I'm going to go ahead and put a coat on this, put a coat on the other side here after I clean it up, and we'll try to use some of that stuff and see if it works out or not. So we'll get this done, and then we'll have everything pretty much fabbed up for this tunnel area on this side, except for right up here at the very top. We're going to leave kind of loose where we can do just a little bit of fine tuning on it once we get the body back on. But we're going to jump over to the other side, go ahead and do the lower portion of the tunnel on it, and we can eventually come in and either put, if we just decide to do a bolt-in tunnel, we'll put some weld nuts on the bottom side, drill holes along the bottom here on the lower portion, weld some nuts to it so we can just have like 1/4-inch bolts that goes, every so often and bolts the tunnel down. And if we, at a later date or something, if we decide to just weld it in solid, we can do that too. So we'll go ahead and get this weld through stuff on here. And it says allow like 10 minutes after coating it before you can weld it. And then on plug welded areas, it said we're going to have to kind of clean the metal up. So we'll get it all on there, and then we'll just kind of wire wheel out where the plug welds are so we can get better penetration, I guess. And then we'll go from there. All right, well, we got that kind of cleaned up a little bit here. So pretty much what we're going to do now is jump over to the driver's side and get it tied together. And like I said, if we end up doing the bolt-in thing, we'll just probably put a heavier bolt down through here, one about here, or possibly down in here on this flat. One every 6-8 inches will be sufficient. And put the 1/4-inch 20 nuts welded up on the underneath side. And if not, like I said, we'll just come in here and burn that in. So we'll get over to the other side and get that wrapped up. All right, well, we got the driver's side of this tunnel pretty well roughed in here. Like I said, same as the passenger side, we just got a little bit up the very top of it to do once we get the body set back down on here. So now we're going to go ahead and moved back to the rear of the car and start working on that gas tank spout. Well, I got a little bit ahead of myself there earlier when I said I was going to jump to that fuel tank spout on the rear. I'd forgot about these front rocker panel corners here that I kind of wanted to clean up a little bit before I put the body back down on there. So that's what I did. I ended up extending this out and adding this little piece right here because originally on the Roadmaster, the door opening was right about here, and it kind of started curving up here on this area here. So I went ahead and just cut that out, extended this over to here, which will be to the very front of the toe board area on the original 57 body. So I figured I'd get that done now before we get the body on there. It's a lot easier to get to everything. And then I went ahead and cut me a little plate here that I'm just going to weld to the inside edge of this rocker panel, since we ended up cutting them down about a foot. So we'll go ahead and get that welded in there like that, and then we'll get moved to that rear spout area. All right, we got that little panel there welded in, and went ahead and ground it down, cleaned it up. We went ahead and cleaned up some of that other sheet metal that was spot welded on the outside here that doesn't need to be there. That way we won't have to work around it once we get that body set down on there. So we'll go ahead and repeat the same thing we just did here on the passenger side and get started on that spout on the rear. Well, now we're going to go ahead and get this filler neck relocated. And the way it's currently set up with the Roadmaster is the fuel tank filler is an 1 3/4 diameter tube, and it actually literally comes out right in the middle. And on 55, 6, and 7s originally, they exited right here on the driver's side, and there was a spout that literally went right above the frame, and there was like a big dip in the trunk floor area to allow that tube to come out and go through there. What I think I'm going to do is come in here with some 1 3/4 material, bore a hole on the inside of the frame and the outside, literally stick this tube completely through to where I'll have a little bit hanging out here on this end we can tie onto with a hose, and we'll reroute us a 90-degree tube that comes over here off the fuel fill that attaches on this side, and then we'll come in on the opposite side, and it should be coming out about right in here where we can attach onto it on this end, which will allow us to come in here to the, here's the original filler on a 57, and that'll allow us to come in here and tie into that once it's back up in the tail fin area. I don't really think that's going to interfere with any of the integrity of the frame or anything, because, like I said, literally we're going to have it welded all the way around on that tube, and like I said, there's not leaf springs or anything else that's supported on the back half of the frame like there is on the original trifive Chevys. So we're going to go ahead and relocate this this exhaust bracket and get this whole board out and get this tube welded in there and go from there. Only the other thing is on the vent tube, it looks like there's going to be enough room to literally run that vent hose in on the top side of the frame and underneath the trunk floor of the Roadmaster frame here. So we shouldn't have to drill another hole and put an extra tube in on the frame for that one. It should just literally lay right along the top side here. So we'll get started on it and see where we end up. All right, well, we got this one side blowed out. Got it cut to where it slips in here. So I guess now I'm going to go ahead and I made this tube a little bit long. That way, you know, it's better to have a little too much than not enough. We can always cut it down later. But I'm going to slide it in here and try to get it to where it looks like it's kind of got an angle over here to the spout, to where it's just a little bit of a grade going down, to where if we drew like an imaginary line from one side to this, it just got a little slope to it. Not a whole lot, but it looks like it's about right there would probably mate up to that just about right there. So we're going to go around to the other side here, and we can kind of see, you know, where the tube's at here. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw kind of a little line around here, and kind of guess it a little bit, and see if we can cut this hole out here pretty close. All right, well, I think that's going to work out right there. It's kind of got a little bit of a slope to it. I mean, if you sight down, it looks like it's going to angle right over to there. So we'll go ahead and get this inside cleaned up and get this tube welded in there. Alright, well, we got the old filler neck all welded up into place. It didn't seem to go too awfully bad. Well, I was really anticipating on getting the old goose set back down on there on this video, but things just didn't work out quite as I'd planned. It took a lot longer than I'd anticipated on getting some of these little loose ends here tied up. But like I said, we should definitely get her on there on the next one and start getting her welded on there. But I want to take this minute here to thank everybody that's been watching and following along and liking and subscribing and stuff. And if you're new to this and think this is interesting at all, please hit the subscribe button. And we have plenty of stuff to come on this. And hopefully we're getting a little bit closer. We're going to be able to get this thing hopefully driving here in the next couple weeks. Man, I tell you, it's taking a lot longer than I anticipated, but I'm kind of on a time crunch now. You know, like I said, I've got that drag racing. There's a heads-up racing I wanted to go to here coming up on the 15th of May, so I need to hurry up and get it kicked up a gear or two here. So until next time, I appreciate everybody and take care.